Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Ivan Barratt on the show. Ivan, welcome.
What's up, Chris? How you
What's
doing?
up? Great. It's great to have you on the show. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for the audience to get to know you a little better?
Sure, man. So Ivan Barratt, I own the BAM companies, property management, capital management, and construction now. Today, I think we're approaching 120 full-time employees. We're about to hit the Inc. 5000 for the fourth time in a row, managing about 100 million in equity, about 400 million in total assets under management, a little over 4,000 apartments. And 11 years ago, next week or the week after that, somewhere around there, I started this thing in my spare bedroom by myself, being a company of one.
Wow. So how did you start off? I'm just curious because a lot of people who get started and they're doing all these amazing things now, it didn't start off with that vision. You might have started with one thing, like let's try property management, and then it grew to what it is. So I'd love to hear, like, how did it start 11 years ago when you were in a spare bedroom?
So 11 years ago, I'm coming off the great financial crisis. I'd been in real estate since graduating college in 2000, working for a mentor in the business who was a developer doing all kinds of things, subdivisions, ground up multifamily for sale. At that time, everybody was buying condos, and he was a small shop and I was wearing a lot of hats. And, I thought I was a pretty big deal. I thought I was pretty awesome at this whole thing. And then the great financial crisis hits, and that humbled me very quickly. Ended up being, negative net worth, negative cash flow on a monthly basis. My loving wife at the time is my girlfriend. I'm trying to convince her I'm a good bet to marry. And I'm trying to figure out
this. A little bit of debt now.
And I'm trying to figure out this whole thing. And I want to own big apartments. I'd always wanted to own big apartment deals. I wanted to be a big player, wanted to be an entrepreneur in real estate. And all of a sudden, these little anecdotes or sayings that my dad had started popping into my head, which I hated hearing growing up. But one was the journey of 10,000 miles or 10,000 units starts with one. And at that time I had a duplex. And I decided that I was going to buy some more real estate. And instead of being worried about doing a big deal, I was just going to do a deal and get my momentum going, take one little step, no matter what it was, in the right direction. And, realized very quickly that it can be tough to build up in real estate. It takes a lot of cash, got to actually find the deals. And conversing over this with my brother, who's also an entrepreneur, and just trying to figure out, like, how am I going to scale this thing? Through some experience shares and some ideas, it finally hit me like a ton of bricks that my path would be property management. And I did not want to freaking do property management in the beginning.
Right.
I, like everybody else, hated the tenants, we call them residents now, and toilet side of it. I didn't want to be the guy in charge of all that. But I also realized at that time that I was going to have to do what I hated in order to later get to do what I loved. And there's folks that can't sell their homes at this time. They're landlords by necessity because they can't get out of their underwater homes. And I figure I can scale a business by doing what everyone hates to do, which is managing the property. And so I just started getting my hands on these little management deals, duplexes, townhomes, condos people couldn't sell, talking to investors, putting the word out. I'm managing property. And at the same time, I started learning about doing small real estate deals with private capital. They called it hard money back then, private lending. And I was going in and buying these severely distressed properties from distressed owners. And I was bringing in lots of renovation dollars to rehab these units, lease them up, and then refinance the property, get my money back, and go do it again. But what really scaled the company in the beginning was the property management side of the business. And from there, I started buying small apartment buildings, started learning a little bit more about raising capital, syndicated my first deal in, I want to say, early 14. Before that, I just bought a couple of deals with some investors. And from there, it was really off to the races. And let's see, a couple of years ago, we slowly started phasing out of that property management business for others, so that now we only manage property that we have an interest in as general partners, as they call it in my space.
Nice.
So it got me really far doing it and serving others. Helped me build the track record, helped me build investor confidence. We made tons of mistakes early on. I had to learn something much harder than property management, which is growing a team, hiring people, firing people. But I just figured it out one step at a time. Sometimes it was a step backwards.
Yeah.
But just not quitting, and pretty consumed with it those first few years, grinding out a small company.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said there about that journey. I think journey of 10,000 miles or 10,000 steps begins with one, like the first step, or even how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You don't just eat it all in one sitting or whatever.
Absolutely,
So taking action. I love how you said just one duplex, one deal, just doing something, even though it seems so insignificant, that turns into two and two turns into four, and you get referrals. And before you know it, you've got business and other opportunities that pop up that you might not even have known existed when you first started. So I just wanted to touch on that point, because that's always pretty cool to see.
Yeah, for sure, man. If I had waited to have it all figured out, I'd still be that guy on the couch, like, years gone by, wondering run the numbers, or how am I going to get that first big deal, instead of just finding out how to build momentum.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I mean, it's funny to see, especially first-time investors or newer investors. I was on a call with one yesterday, and I could tell he's very analytical. They're trying to do their first deal. They backed out. They're kind of working with multiple realtors. So I was kind of helping him, and we talked for an hour yesterday, and he was showing me the inspection report that they saw that made them terminate the contract they were, they had under contract. And I'm like, dude, this stuff is so easy. That's an easy fix. That looks serious. And the mistake that he had made is they had the inspector just send them the report. They didn't do a FaceTime or meet up with the inspector to have an explanation of what the issues were. But I always remind people, hey, anything can be fixed at the right price point, right? You make your money when you buy the deal, going into the transaction. And so that was just a little reminder where I said, oh man, this is the nicest inspection report I've seen in some time. And you're going to have issues no matter what. And so
that's the value add.
Yeah. Taking action. And I mean, that is so important, because so many people are stuck in analysis paralysis, and they're just too scared to make any mistakes. But the only way you can learn is through those mistakes.
Absolutely. And I, like everybody else, used to have huge butterflies in my stomach. I would get that fear, right?
Yeah, you don't want to lose money
before putting in a deal. And then I had to really just swallow it and suck it up. And one thing I told myself was, that's not God telling me not to do the deal or something's wrong. That's the other guy trying to talk me out of my plan.
That's a good way of putting it.
And that, as you do more and more repetition, it goes away. But it's like getting on stage and speaking publicly, or doing a lot of things that are scary the first time. You got to suck it up and just do it.
Absolutely. I think I heard a quote from Gary Vee where it said, if anyone ever did it, you can too, because we all get scared to death to do public speaking or things like that, or, going on a first skydive. But then you see the videos on YouTube, and the people are awesome videos, and people do this stuff every day, all day long. Like, I was skydiving once, and I was sitting across, and this guy could tell I was visibly nervous because it was like my 28th jump. And he's an older man, like 65 years old or something, maybe 60. And he's like, how many jumps do you have? I'm like, this is my 28th jump, I think. How about you? And he's like, this is my 4,500th jump or something like that. Wow. And so it put me at ease, because I'm like, man, this guy's lived a nice long life. He's been here for a long time. He's still alive. He has way more jumps than me. This is going to be a cakewalk. Same thing with real estate. When we get around other people, or anything outside of real estate too, we get around other people like me talking here with you, and I see everything you've accomplished. It makes me go out into the world and say, hey, why am I kind of dragging my feet on this deal? Let's just get this thing done and take some action. Yeah.
Modeling is one of my key ingredients for success. I didn't invent anything new or come up with, something ultra different. I looked at folks that had blazed a path in that business before, and sure, I've added my own spice, my own ingredients to it. But the fundamentals, at least in my business, are pretty simple. They're not easy, which is what really screws a lot of people up. They're really freaking hard, but it's not rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
The rules and how you work and underwrite deals and how you manage all that's actually pretty simple down at its core.
That is very confusing for people who first hear it. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? You kind of think that they're the same.
Yeah, it's anything but easy, but it's pretty simple in its formula.
Yeah, it makes me think of those rocket scientists who have the shirt that says like, actually, it is rocket science. That's kind of cool, but I know this isn't rocket science. So reminder to everyone in the audience, this is not rocket science or brain surgery. You can model. That's a key to success. And who were some of your early models? Does anyone come to mind, or any podcasts or books that you really found transformative for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, all the classics, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Ken McElroy was a big influence. I got to talk to him recently for the first time. That was a lot of fun, one-on-one. But his book on basically how to grow a property management company, he had a similar start. And then shout out to Dave Lindahl. He's like the old one of the original gangsters of apartment syndication. So he had a CD course that I think I bought for $1,000 called Apartment House Riches, and I listened to that thing in my car. I mean, this is when cars had CD players.
Right.
I listened to those things over and over and over again. Everywhere I was driving, I had Apartment House Riches playing. And I would pick up new information every time I went through it, and just the repetition over and over again, just, fusing that into my brain.
Yeah.
I would say those are some of them. I was really lucky to have a mentor in this business who is still a father figure in some ways today. But most of my mentors, I really haven't met. It was through books and educational courses. There wasn't a lot on syndication when I started, which definitely would have been a nice thing to have. Yeah. But there's also a lot of information out there in books at the time.
That's awesome to hear, because that's the same situation with many of my listeners. I mean, I see people ask it all the time. How do I find a mentor? Who do I ask to be my mentor? And it's pretty refreshing to know that you can just go on YouTube and have these kind of virtual mentors who you don't really communicate with. Maybe you go to their seminar one day or jump on a webinar or something like that. But for the most part, you can just watch YouTube videos, read their books, and they condense decades of experience into like a $15 book that you could even listen to on Audible in 5 or 6 hours. I mean, that's pretty amazing to be able to have that kind of access to that knowledge. But yeah, I always think of that quote. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm a fan of
audiobooks,
of hiring a coach.
Yeah, no, that's important too. But there's so much free stuff too.
Yeah, you can get a long way with books. But if you want to accelerate the growth, I'm a big fan of coaching and being in different masterminds and forums as well.
For sure, because a book's great, but I get the only downside to all the free content out there is that it gives you a little bit about a lot of different things, right? You can listen to 10 different videos about real estate wholesaling, for example. One person will say, oh, try bandit signs. Another person will be like, that doesn't work, or that's illegal in most markets. Don't do it. Do direct mail. And you're going to hear differing things, which will cause you to probably have analysis paralysis versus if you just have a coach who has a certain framework, they give you 5 steps to follow, you follow it to a T, and they're in your market ideally, or they're familiar with it. I mean, you're going to be successful because, like you said, you didn't really reinvent the wheel on anything or create anything magically new. You made your own twist in a few areas, but you modeled people who have already blazed the path before you.
Yeah. Yes. Well said.
No, it's just something I remind people of constantly, because they're like, how do I do this? Or I'm not sure where to start. I'm like, you don't have to figure it all out. It's been figured out. Follow what works, and you can add your tweaks along the way. So I just wanted to add that as well. But what are some of the things that you're focusing on improving in your business now in 2021?
Oh man. So now there's, it's much more fun for me as the CEO. So I spend a lot of time these days actually just thinking. I block out a lot of my calendar just so I can think.
Yeah.
So I get to think a lot on our strategy, what our mountaintop looks like, and then really understanding our hiring, knowing who to hire next. So we're at this point in the game with about 120 employees or so. We're really focused on key hires and continuing to expand our leadership team as we grow the company. And we formally separated it into 3 separate companies with overlapping values, but very different missions. That was a fun process to go through. So
yeah.
As the entrepreneur, CEO, or what you might call a visionary, based on the EOS formula, if you're familiar with that, a lot of my job now is going out into the marketplace, interacting with other entrepreneurs, interacting with different industries, right? And finding ideas and people and systems and strategies that I can bring back to our fire and make us better. And I get to oversee a great team on the capital side that raises the majority of our equity now in-house. I've done that myself for several years. And now 2 years later, we built out a team to handle most of that workload so that I can be more on strategy, key hires, and steering the ship at a high level.
I did want to ask you, because I've been blocking out time for more thinking time as well. But sometimes I'm like, well, what do I think? What do I think about? Or is there a framework? Do I start off with a certain exercise to get the creative juices flowing? Or do you just sit there and you kind of think like, what's an issue that I need to solve in my business right now? I'm just curious if you have any method to the madness.
Oh, so I'll give you a couple examples. So for me, I get my best thinking time in the shower.
Yep, I hear that often.
My wife finally stops bugging me about why I'm in the shower so long.
For 3 hours.
Or I'll go on. I work out quite a bit. Training for some hard stuff on my calendar, and I get some really good thinking time when I'm on the bike, cross training on a road bike.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that, this morning I was trying to journal and think of some stuff I needed to think about, or what was mission critical today. And I literally wrote down, I can't think of anything. Right. So it comes and goes.
Yep.
It comes and goes. It's funny when I sit down to write, sometimes it doesn't work like that. But I've always got something nearby. So almost on every bike ride I take, I have to slow down and text myself, or I email myself a note or two that I've thought of, so I can get back to it later.
I love that. And one thing I've heard a lot of people say is whenever they're doing something that you can't really be texting and riding your bike, you're focused on your surroundings and what you're doing and the nature, and maybe you're paying a little more attention to like the birds and the butterflies flying around than you normally would. It gives you that time to think, because you are kind of doing something, but you don't have to focus 100% on riding a bike. It's almost like
it does force you to be a little more present, because you got to watch out for cars and other
potholes.
People. You got to be a little more present. You can't text or flick through social media, right?
Yeah,
because you're riding. Right. So it does allow me some really good focused thought time versus sitting down
exactly
in a quiet space and trying to write. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. And then one thing that I found for myself. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. But no, you're right, Chris. In the shower, I can't text or scan social media either, and I can only do so much in there before I'm in my own head.
Right, you have to think.
Yeah.
That's a great tool.
A lot of my good ideas to my team have started out with, I was thinking about you guys in the shower this morning.
That's funny. But one other tip too for those listening is making sure not to listen to podcasts all the time, because I'm guilty of throwing my headphones in and just plugging myself with audio and ideas. But then I'm listening to those things instead of thinking of my own thoughts. So if I'm listening to music, or in the shower, maybe just listening to the running water, that forces you, like you said, to think, because you're no longer just on autopilot listening to something else. And I love what you said there about emailing yourself or texting yourself. When you have an idea, you stop and you email it to yourself so you can get to it later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like listening to instrumental, like classical music or instrumental EDM, which kind of keeps the heart rate up, keeps me jazzed up. maybe jazzed up,
jammed up, jazzed up,
jazzed up. But it doesn't. There's no words going to get in my head and knock me off course.
I found that helpful for me too, because I love rock and metal, and I've been a drummer. The problem is with those types of music of songs, I start to like tap on my desk, and I'm trying to read an email or type something important, and I'm like drumming things out with my fingers on my desk, and that doesn't help. So the EDM, like the fast-paced electronic stuff that keeps your heart rate up a little bit, keeps you energized. That's been very helpful for me. So thank you for sharing all those tips. And then for your hiring process, I mean, what were some of your key hires? I know you're pretty far ahead. Around 120 employees is a pretty significant amount, but what would you say were some of your critical hires when you were first growing a team?
Oh, well, if I could do it all over again, I would have hired an assistant much sooner. I think I got up to 70 units managing before I hired anybody. So I kind of, had that lone wolf solopreneur mentality a little bit too long.
Yep.
This is such a great question. I think I'm going to answer it this way. And if this doesn't work, you can call me out and we'll try again.
However, I'd love to hear just your thoughts on it.
What I decided at a really early stage was that people and the management of them and growing a team were going to be much harder than the business of real estate. They were going to make real estate seem easy. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was going to get hit in the mouth, and I decided I was going to get knocked down. I was going to hire, fire. And I would tell any entrepreneur that is just part of it. It's almost back to that analysis paralysis. Should you get personality tests? Absolutely, right? Are there great content or articles out there on how to hire people? Yes. Read that stuff, but don't get bogged down in it. There's no way to be perfect in hiring people. You've just got to really go for it, and yeah, sometimes you'll get to hire slow and you'll fire fast. And sometimes you'll screw that up and, you'll fire somebody and think, oh my gosh, I should have done this 6 months ago. Right. It's just part of the learning process. Don't let it slow you down. It's hard for everybody. Right. And, you're going to run into these people that are solopreneurs that are like, oh, I don't like managing people, or I don't like managing payroll or whatever. And that's fine for them. But if you want to grow a big company, you got to figure it out.
Absolutely.
You got to figure it out. And if you go back to, the cash flow quadrant, rich dad, the B quadrant business, like that's what I set out to achieve. So early on, I told folks, like, we're not a small business. We're a big company that just happens to be small today, right? And so I've always tried to take that approach with my company, right? Is we're going to be big one day. How do we grow a big company? How do we scale this thing? How do we have something that turns into its own organism, right? So right now, this company operates to a large degree without me. It's like another child for me now. It wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
But now it's like it's formed its own personality, and I get to watch it continue to grow and expand and make mistakes and learn, trending in the right direction. But I some days just get to sit back and be a proud dad watching this thing continue to grow. I know I'm going off on a tangent there. For every business, it's different what the key hires are in the beginning, and it's up to the entrepreneur to figure out, hey, who do I got to hire next? It's a question I ask myself and my COO, my partner, a lot is, who are we hiring next? Who's the next big hire? Where are we weak? What do we need? Right? A lot of people, it just starts off with hiring an assistant, somebody to do all the stuff that takes up time every day, that takes you away from what you should be doing as the owner of the company or business.
I agree with what you said there. So I'll let you get away with that answer, because I think it's spot on that it really just depends. It really depends on the business owner. What are the needs? What are the things that people are struggling with that they feel they need help with? But also just not falling victim to analysis paralysis. That's so key, especially in making those hires, because you're really not going to know. It's like making a friend or dating somebody, I guess, until you've been hanging out and talking and going to lunches and working together for 6+ months or maybe even longer. That's when you really start to see the person's work ethic. Where are they strong? Where are they weak? Do you butt heads? All those little things. How do they work well with others, or do they not work well with others?
Yeah.
Those are only things that you're going to see, because everyone can do well. I'm just thinking of myself from like a job that I got fired from. Everyone can do well in the interview. I killed it. And then 2 weeks in, I'm like, man, why did I get a job again? Like, I kind of got desperate, and an entrepreneur thing was harder than I thought. And I got a job. And a month later, it was very hard to act like I was still interested in oil and gas, because I had left it for a reason. Sure. So same thing with employees. You just hire them, and then a few months in, see if it's a good fit, see where you guys need some work. And then maybe it takes a little bit of testing and tweaking to put the right person on the right seat in the bus.
Yeah. I've had people that have been here for 6-7 years, very early on.
Awesome.
And we had people early on that lasted 2 or 3 days.
It's funny how that works.
It's just part of it. You gotta grow through it as an entrepreneur. And all you have to do is just learn how to not quit, not give up. If you get knocked down 7 times, get up 8.
Definitely. It's a muscle, because it can be very frustrating, right? It's so frustrating getting knocked down, especially when you're not used to failure. You were always an A student and you did well in sports or whatever. Those are the friends that I have who have the hardest time dealing with their first few failures. Yeah.
I'm lucky. My dad had a lot of sayings around failure, about mistakes being stepping stones.
I love it.
Fail fast. He was into all that.
That's good, because that's important mindset stuff. I mean, we think about the friends or the people that we know who had the strict parents. If you got a B, you got time out, or, you didn't get to go out, or you were grounded. I'm just thinking about, I'm half Indian, and my dad has a lot of Indian friends that are like, hey, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. That's it. That's your only two options. Yeah.
Oh man, good luck.
Yeah. And so a lot of the friends that I had that were they had super strict parents who wanted the best for them and wanted them to do really well. But those kids were so afraid of failing that they want something that's more secure. They don't want to step out into the unknown and possibly lose money or fall on their face and look like a failure to their friends,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So who have been some of the biggest impacts in your life in terms of entrepreneurship? I mean, I love that you said you cross collaborate, in other industries to try to pick ideas that apply to you. Are you in any masterminds that are outside of the real estate space or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm in a couple of real estate related masterminds. Some of them are called Forum. The biggest impact, or greatest impact, I would say, have actually been from organizations that aren't just real estate centric at this point. Early on, you need a lot of real estate education. You need to understand what's going on, but at some point it's more about business in general, operating companies.
Yep.
People is so big. And so let's see, 6 years ago, I joined EO, which is Entrepreneurs Organization.
Okay.
Shortly after, so you join a forum of entrepreneurs. It could be 5, it could be 9, 10 people, and everybody's in a different business. But to get into EO, you have to be making at least $1 million a year in company revenue.
Cool.
And then a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago now, I joined YPO. So I graduated EO and joined YPO, which is for my market, you have to be north of 13 million in revenue. And that's a whole nother ecosystem of forums, industry related and industry agnostic. But some of those really great, impactful ideas came from entrepreneurs in completely different industries than me that just had a better system. Great example. It doesn't sound that great right now, but 2004 or now in 2021, but in 2014, I'm getting 200 emails a day, right? And I'm like, I got to find something better. And I'm hanging out with a guy in the tech space, and he introduced me to Slack.
Game changer for sure.
Game changer. In 2014, nobody had heard of it, right?
I just started using it here in 2021. I had heard of it a couple of years ago. I was like,
And
emails are fine.
Nobody in property management had it, and we've had it. And it's been it made a huge impact, reduced all those emails, right? Everybody's all spread out over the Midwest at different apartment communities. We all feel like we're on the same team in real time. Mm-hmm. And I found that totally outside my industry. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur out there listening to the show and you have to pick between like an industry related forum group or mastermind and one that's industry agnostic, I'm not saying every time, but it might be worth taking a hard look at being the industry agnostic one and just learning from other entrepreneurs that are scaling a company.
I love that advice.
And then, the rocket fuel for me has been pairing that with coaches in my life, business coach, spiritual, marriage, fitness. I've got all those right now. Anywhere that I need to accelerate my success, I have a coach.
That's really something that so many successful people share. They have coaches in all of those areas because if it's important to you.
Well over 6 figures now.
Annually?
On an annual basis. Oh yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. When I add up the forums that I'm in and the coaches that I pay for in different areas of my life, absolutely I'm in the 6 figures.
That's amazing. But it pays back tenfold. I'm sure it's probably difficult to quantify. Like, did that relationship cause this?
No, my ROI is way more than 10x.
Oh, I know it'll be way more than it, but I mean, to pinpoint the exact number, the relationships, the referrals, the Slack idea, how much time, energy, headaches that probably saved you over the years because you started using that years before everybody else. So there's the stuff that you can measure, but also the stuff that's more like the relationships and the friendships and the people that you've met that they're amazing, but you can't really put like a dollar value on that, so to say.
Agreed.
That's amazing though. So what are we missing? Is there anything that you want to talk about? I know we still have some time. I just want to make sure I extract all the nuggets that you have from your experience and the organizations you're in. Feel free to add anything that you'd like to touch on.
Having fun so far. We touched on mindset, I think, discipline, growing a business,
industry agnostic events.
It's your show, Chris. What do you got?
Man, so we've talked about all those things. I mean, I know you're 2021, you're growing the team, you spend a lot of time thinking. That's great. That's something that I've been working on as well, is how do you actually know what to think about next? And how have you been navigating with everything going on since conferences and all those things maybe went a little more virtual? They're starting to open back up a bit, but how did you manage in 2020 with everything kind of stopping? Were you still involved on online Zoom calls to check in with those people you were connecting with regularly?
Zoom has been a great addition to my business. It got me kicking myself. Like, why wasn't I already doing this before?
Right.
It's so much more efficient to meet, say, new investors and speak to them in a much more effective manner than going to lunch or traveling. So it's been great for my lifestyle. And COVID, brought my family a little bit closer. Our circle of friends got a little closer, and made, how I communicate to my investors much more efficient. I'll certainly ramp up the travel again, probably not as much for business and more for pleasure. Mm-hmm. Right now, the capital markets are really liquid. There's lots of equity out there that wants to be in real estate, looking for yield. There's equity available for all kinds of entrepreneurs, debt available. It's a really great time to be uncovering opportunities that people want to invest in. I didn't do a lot of Zoom conferences through the pandemic. That time it was more reading and podcasts. Did a few virtual mastermind stuff. My main forum was still meeting through a lot of that time physically. We had a safe space where we could all kind of be distanced from each other, so we still got to meet a lot.
Cool.
Certainly changed the landscape, but was also a great thing just in the business category. Obviously hurt a lot of people. But we run what's called like a market neutral approach to real estate, where we do well in good times and we do sometimes even better
in bad times.
In bad times.
That's it. Yeah, us, that's great.
Purely business standpoint, it was a fantastic opportunity.
I agree with a lot of what you said there. I mean, that resonates with me as well, with the Zoom calls being a great way to connect with investors or clients, or you can do sales calls on it as opposed to meeting up with people in person and driving across town and those types of things. And so I'm kind of milking it. I mean, I've been telling my audience, I actually moved from Houston to Colorado 3 months ago.
Good for you.
I've got deals closing with real estate clients in Houston still remotely because everyone's used to Zoom. They don't care if I'm actually not showing the houses. So I have other people meeting them there. And I'm like, hey, after, things open back up, everyone knows how to use Zoom. Let's just continue that process of book a call. We'll do an introduction call.
Yeah,
and then
it's
you
much
can follow
more
up from there.
much more acceptable now.
Absolutely. And everyone knows how to do it. Even like our parents and stuff, like they had to use it.
Yeah, it's crazy. And pre-pandemic, I have a lot of investors all over the country. Pre-pandemic, we just hop on like a conference line or a cell phone. And now
right.
we try to insist on Zoom because it's such an easier way to build rapport and build a relationship.
Absolutely. Not to mention being able to record like we're doing here and share your screen, all those added functions versus, I'm just thinking back to meeting in person before where it's like, okay, let me turn my laptop around to share the screen. And now I can't really see it. So I don't know what I'm clicking on, first world problem. But anyway, I just wanted to just dive in on that of like taking advantage of the opportunities. But it's great to hear that, your business is doing well, either good or bad economy, because I know not all businesses did super great, but some did better than before because look at Zoom, for example, everyone started using it. More people started shopping on Amazon. So it's just interesting to see which businesses kind of grew even more during that situation and which ones maybe had to adapt or pivot,
For sure.
Awesome. So I have a question in terms of meeting people. Whenever you're wanting to connect with whether it's investors or entrepreneurs, you see all the annoying little cold pitches in LinkedIn messages like, hey, you have 10 minutes to discuss this opportunity. That never works. I'm just curious to see what have you seen working for you? Because I'd like to connect with some people, but I'm not really sure how do I open that door online without having a referral or another connection. Do you have a certain strategy for that?
That's a tough one. That's a really good question though, Chris. So I've been the chief capital raiser for BAM for years. And only the last couple of years, I think I said earlier, did I, build out a team around that to take some of the weight off my shoulders. Mm-hmm. I got really, really far by just tapping my own network.
Okay.
And so I would, even like before I had a CRM, I would just make a list of everybody I knew that I thought was successful or had money. And I would literally just hit them up for coffee or lunch. There was a lot of days where I was doing 2 lunches back to back.
And eating a lot.
Oh yeah, man. I always approached it as like just having conversations with people. Like, hey, I'd love to catch you up on what I'm doing. No hard sell, but I just would love to catch up in general and show you what I'm doing.
Okay.
And then in building off my own network first. And raised a lot of capital that way. And then as I perform for those investors, still the number one source for us of new investors is investor referrals of existing LPs, existing partners in our deals. And of course, now as a 506c offering, we advertise, we're on different channels and that kind of thing. I've had a little success with the LinkedIn sales campaign, but I would really stress to the younger entrepreneurs out there that there's probably a lot more wealth in their network than they're tapping. And friends and family is typically a really good way to start, right? You've got that, that first little deal under contract or something like that. You want to first go to people that already trust you and like you. That's a great way to build some momentum. Hitting up people cold, that's a tough game.
That is. I love what you said there.
I can't tell you because I've got CEO in my title, dude. Like,
how many times you get hit up?
Oh, on a daily basis. I don't even really like LinkedIn as much as I used to because I'm just constantly bombarded.
Yeah.
With solicitations. So I probably got some people in my inbox that actually want to invest. And they can't even get a hold of me because they're just buried in everybody trying to sell me digital marketing and offshoring and insurance and every
SEO, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, there's a place for that when you've got advertising money and bandwidth to do those sorts of things. But I think for most aspiring entrepreneurs, if they really sit down and start making lists. Who do I know? Who do my parents know? Who do they know? Who do my friends know? Who are their parents?
It's a lot of people.
There's going to be a lot of successful people in there that will absolutely do a Zoom call or a coffee or a lunch with you. And that's awesome. A great place to start. I raised so much freaking money tapping that network first before going out into these other channels.
That's really great advice, because a lot of times we forget, I mean, myself included, we forget that the people that we've already met and developed relationships with, friends, family, friends of friends, that we have rapport with them. They know us, we went to school together, whatever the brotherhood or the bond is, that goes a lot further than a cold LinkedIn message. And so a lot of times we kind of step over the gold in our network to try to find new people who we haven't reached yet, when there's so much opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And then not pitching people.
That's a tough one too sometimes for people.
I almost never pitch anyone.
I love it.
It's more of a conversation. It's, hey, I'm going to be as transparent as I can about what we're doing. Then you as the investor can self-select if I'm a fit or not. And if I'm not a fit, I don't want you in my deal, because that makes a bad partnership.
Right.
Just changing that approach. It's still sales. It's still persuasion. I'm a sales guy at heart, a business development guy, right? So studying all that stuff is really important. That's one thing we haven't talked about is, every entrepreneur needs a lot of sales training.
For sure.
It takes a lot of sales training to go far in this business, because almost everything is sales in some way or another. But not pitching people, having a conversation, tailoring the conversation to the audience is going to get a lot farther. I think the problem today, Chris, is most people don't want to put in that work.
Right. I agree.
Right. We talked earlier about it's like a muscle, dude. It's like you want a six pack, you want some guns. Like you got to train daily. You got to eat right daily. It's not just going on a Saturday morning and hitting the gym really hard, right?
Right.
It's the same thing for raising capital for your business, attracting investors or finding deals. It's getting out there and rubbing elbows, having so many meetings a week and taking a disciplined approach to it.
Great advice. And speaking of sales, do you have one or two books that you recommend for anyone listening to go check out?
So, there's some classics, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's some great authors in this category. I'll probably forget some. A guy that I really don't follow that much anymore because he's just so out there sometimes and so much shock value.
I think I know who you're going to say.
But I will say some of his books on
I like
sales,
him.
you just listen to the books on sales and listen to that content. Grant Cardone, I got to give him a shout out.
I already knew where you were going. I was like,
I had to unfollow him. I don't agree with some of the stuff or some of his approach and his what he says. He's a shock DJ now or something. I don't know. But his sales content is still some liquid gold. And there's others for sure.
10X and then Be Obsessed or Be Average. I mean, some of those books have some very good principles and they're not as crazy as, I know he likes to come out, like you said, shock value on social media, but the books have a lot of gold in them for sure. Yeah.
Some of those principles on running your lists and creative ways of following up.
Yeah.
And there's some good examples in those books. I had an investor that he's been on my slow drip list for 10 years, Chris.
Wow.
I've kept in touch with him for 10 years. Every now and then, hey, Bob, not his real name. Hey, Bob, how you doing? I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Oh, here's what I'm up to. That investment style still doesn't work for me. I like to do this. I like to do that. 10 years later, he just wired $1 million for our fund.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So you just never know, right? And one of the grants things is sometimes people get busy. Just because they're ignoring you doesn't mean you should stop following up, right? People get busy or it's the wrong time, and so you've got to manage that list and cultivate it. And we could go on for another hour about stories of people that were on my list forever. My biggest investor now. It was a 3-year conversation before he ever participated in a deal.
That's amazing. That's a great reminder to play the long game.
You got to play the long game, and you got to, we'll do another grantism. You got to stuff the pipeline. You got to have lots of conversations with people.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about cold calls. Talk about who do I know? Who do my parents know? Who are their friends? Right. And then it's just, hey, I'd love to show you what I'm doing. I'd love to talk real estate. It's not a hard sell. I'd love to hear your story. Right. It's the same way I got a job with my mentor. I didn't go in with a resume and say, hey, can I have a job? I said, hey, I'd love to take you out to lunch. I'm buying, and I would just love to hear your real estate journey. I'll meet you anytime, anywhere, morning, noon, or night. Love to bend your ear for a few minutes and hear more about how you got to where you got to.
For sure. And I love how you mentioned follow up is important. It really is. The example you just shared there, 3 years, and the other guy who's been on your drip campaign for 10 years. Whereas most,
Chris, you can guess how many times I get hit up for somebody that just wants to hear my story or pick my brain or get 15 minutes from me.
Oh yeah.
You can guess how many times I get hit up because I'm out there in real estate, on social media. You know how many people follow up twice and ask me for my time?
Probably none. Less
than 1%.
That's amazing.
Those are the ones that I'll usually give a little time to. If somebody follows up,
because it's so rare. That's so true. And I was going to say, we have this like microwave mentality now, we want everything now and we're primed for it. You can watch a show on Netflix and just hit play and watch the whole season. You can order something on Amazon and it's here tomorrow, if not later today, depending on the area that you're in. And so when you're like, talk to someone for 3 years and to get a single investment, like what the heck, who does that? But that's the reminder that we need to give to everyone in today's day and age that not everything is overnight. It takes time. So I like to think of the crock pot mentality versus the microwave mentality.
For sure, man. 10,000 steps, sometimes more, sometimes less. But if you're not willing to put in the discipline and the hard work, and it's the daily little things that add up over time. If you're not willing to do that, go get a job.
Yeah, it's tough because the path is never clear, but you just have to start taking action towards something, and then the other opportunities will present themselves. It really never is. I wake up sometimes and I'm like, what do I do today? I want to do stuff, but is this the right stuff? And what was right for you 5 years ago may be different for me now. And maybe I have a different vision for where I want to go. Right.
Yeah. But some things haven't changed. Right. And most entrepreneurs have got to make revenue, so it's
important.
Who have I not followed up with lately? Right.
That's a great question.
How many people have I got scheduled for coffee this week? Oh, I'm falling behind. I got to call some people. That's what I got to do first. Before I do anything else today, who do I got to follow up with? Who have I not talked to in a while? I didn't have a CRM in the beginning, man. I just made a list, and everywhere I went, I had that list with me. And every time I thought, oh man, his dad is in real estate, or his dad's a surgeon, or her mom is a surgeon, I'd put them on the list. Hey, can I bug you for 15 minutes?
That's awesome.
I'll just show you what I'm doing. No hard sell. I just love some feedback.
Yeah. And then that may lead to another conversation, a referral, someone who becomes an investor. And so that is a great nugget right there. Like when you wake up, like I did today, and I look at the whiteboard and I'm like, what should I work on today? Look at the calendar. Do you have any coffee meetings or Zoom calls this week? And if not, who can you reach out to in your network to get something scheduled just to have a conversation?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Who have I not pinged in a while?
And without the pitch too. I love that because there's a science behind it. I get pitched by some people frequently and they just don't get, they just hard sell me and there's no value and they're just trying to sell me and they just follow up persistently. But the way that you do it, like I'm sure you do, the way you deliver it, you're just having that conversation, letting them know what you do. And if they're interested, they'll raise their hand. There's like a science behind it. So how you do it is very important.
Yeah, it's a soft approach a lot. Like, hey, hope you're well. Haven't talked in a while. Now for me, it's a little bit different being into it for a while, but it's hey, are you still interested in getting deal flow from me? If not, no big deal. Let me know. But if you are, I'd love to catch up on what we're doing lately. We're making a lot of people a lot of money, something like that, or something less salesy. It just depends. Everybody's got a little bit of a different delivery, but there's got to be some softness to it, conversational. Gets a lot more hits than just hard pitching or cold calling.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's something that you've gotten better at over time since you have been doing this for some time now. Your 1,000th or your 10,000th pitch or conversation is going to be a lot better than your first. So you just have to do the reps and go through the motions.
Got to do the reps.
Take action. There's no shortcut to that.
Push-ups, do more push-ups. Like there's no There's no way around it.
That little belt that you put on, it doesn't give you the six pack overnight. That doesn't work.
Get the reps, man. Got to get the reps.
Well, no Ivan, I really enjoyed our conversation. Where can our audience go to connect with you and to learn more about everything that you're up to?
I think I'm down here. bamcapgroup.com is a good place to start.
There we go. bamcapgroup.com. I'll link that up in the show notes for everyone. And are there any final takeaways you'd like to leave the audience with today?
Oh, man. I think we hit a lot there, Chris.
We did.
Do the reps.
That summarizes it all. Do the reps, whether it's negotiating or networking or doing the soft pitches, do the reps.
Yeah. Who's Seattle Seahawks quarterback?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not a big sports guy.
Oh, me neither. I forget what's his name. Somebody will call it out in the comments. Great young man. But he wrote a book. It Takes What It Takes.
Oh, that's a great name. It takes what it takes.
It takes what it takes, man. There's no way around it.
It takes what it takes. And it's like if you want to bake a cake, you can't take the shortcut. I heard this on another podcast. You can't put it to 500 degrees and think you're going to get it done in half the time. You're going to burn the cake. So it takes what it takes. That's a great name.
It takes what it takes.
Awesome. Well, Ivan, thank you once again for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. We covered a lot of amazing stuff, and I will link this up in the show notes and let you know as soon as we're live for everyone to listen to.
And Russell Wilson, shout out to you. That's who I was thinking of. It takes what it takes. Russell Wilson.
Awesome. Shout out to you, Russell. It takes what it takes. And
I don't even need to read the book, Russell. I got it all in the title.
That is such a good title. It summarizes it up. But anyway, Ivan, we'll be in touch and let me know if I can support in any way. And thank you once again.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. Hey everyone, Chris Bello here. Just wanted to thank you real quick for listening to the show, whether you're listening on podcast or YouTube or wherever it is that you may be listening. I wanted to make that quick offer about real estate help. I am in the real estate business. That is my main business and how I make all my income and my living by helping others buy, sell, rent, or invest in real estate across the nation. If you have any questions at all, go to chrisbello.com/real estate. Again, that is chrisbello.com/real estate. I'd love to see if I can help you out in my markets. And maybe if you're in a market outside of the ones that I'm focusing on right now, I'd love to connect you with a real estate professional who can help fulfill whatever needs or services that you are requiring. So again, go to chrisbello.com/real estate. A great thing is when I connect you with a vetted professional, if I'm not able to help you myself, is whenever a transaction closes, I'm actually able to get a referral commission. So that can be a great way of thanking me for my content. It helps to support the show, and it helps me to continue to spend time bringing on amazing guests, doing these great interviews, spending a lot of time on creating content, and making sure that I can bring you the very best information that you need to grow professionally, emotionally, intelligently, and in every single area. You know, we're all working on getting better at everything. And so my focus and expertise is in real estate. I'd love to be the one to help you again. If you're not interested in that, no worries at all. Please continue to listen to the show. Make sure you leave a review. It helps so much in getting new followers and sharing the message. And thank you once again for being a listener. I'll catch you on the next episode.